brute force. If it doesn't work, you're just not using enough. You're listening to SOFREP Radio, special operations military news, and straight talk with the guys in the community.
Every year here at SOFREP, we are always reminded on Veterans Day about those who pay the ultimate sacrifice and those that we love and care about who serve our nation and our global allies. And with that said, we'd like to give a shout out this Veterans season, which should be every day, to Ben Bernstein, United States Air Force Security Police, served all through the 80s and 90s, 23 years of service. Big salute to you, sir. Your service demands respect. Navy Federal Credit Union celebrates veterans of all branches and their families on Veterans Day and every day of the year. Their legacy is built on commitment and understanding, and they're proud to serve the military community for over 90 years. They serve over 2 million veterans. If you want to be a part of a financial institution that is dedicated to supporting veterans like you and your family, you can become a member today at NavyFederal.org/veterans. And to all veterans, happy Veterans Day. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission. Navy Federal is insured by NCUA. Hey, what's going on? This is Rad with another awesome episode of SOFREP Radio. This time I come to you with a very cool guest, but before I introduce you to him, okay, which you already know who it is because you clicked on the link. But before I introduce you to him, I got to tell you about the merch store. So for the first time listener out there, welcome to the show. Please check out our merch store. Go ahead and support us. And that's at sofrep.com/merch. So go check out the merch store. And I think my guy Callum, my producer, could put a little something right here where my fingers are. Maybe you could click on it. I don't know how that works, but maybe he does. Second, we have a book club. So you hear me say, you got to go to the gym, you got to keep yourself in health, and that's your wealth. And so your brain also is a muscle. And so if you could read some books, that would be great, okay? Because knowledge is power and your brain needs to read. I went to math class one time and I'm like, why am I going to ever use this math in school? And she's like, oh, you may not ever use it, but your brain is using it. And I'm like, oh, the brain works. Okay, so read a book at sofrep.com/book-club. Now, my next guest is a former C-130 pilot. He can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, that's the one that can bank and have all the guns that shoots down. And I don't know if he flew Puff or not, but we'll find out. I want to welcome Thom Geiser, Armed Forces Special Advisor for the International Committee of the Red Cross, based in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show, Thom.
Thank you, Rod. Pleasure to be here.
Right? We're about to go down this roller coaster. Okay, I'm going to read your bio. Allow me to introduce you to my listener, all right? Okay. Thom Geiser serves as an Armed Forces Special Advisor to the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC. He transitioned from uniform as an U.S. Air Force colonel after 25 years of military service. He then took a family sabbatical in Europe while studying international humanitarian law prior to his transition to the ICRC. He is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, where he participated in a program that allowed him to travel for 1 year throughout South America to study Spanish and Portuguese. While immersing in the cultures of the many local communities he visited, following his commission, he began his career working for congressmen like Skelton on the House Armed Service Committee. Very cool. As a Truman Scholar prior to attending Oxford University in the United Kingdom as a Rhodes Scholar. Jeez. He served at NATO HQ supporting AMB Richard Holbrooke during Balkan conflict negotiations. He has also worked as the Inter-American Defense Board in coordination with the Organization of American States. He is a command pilot as well as a Latin American and European foreign affairs strategist who has served tours in the United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, and Brazil. He is a graduate of Fulminese, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He is a graduate of the U.S. National War College and taught at the Eisenhower School of National Security and Resource Strategy, where he also served as a guest lecturer at the Inter-American Defense College. He has deployed on multiple contingency operations across the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Most of his career has been spent leading within the units of Special Operations Command with a focus on advising and leading partners hold on, cell phones. Allies during contingency operations. His last military assignment before transitioning from uniform was a deputy commander of the U.S. Special Operations Command in Africa. I think I got that all out. Okay. Ace Ventura here. Okay. They had a hell of a model American. Let's not forget that part, okay? All right. Colonel, sir, dude, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rod.
Oh, I appreciate that. Hey, so I see that there's a sign behind you, and it's the International Committee for the Red Cross.
That's right.
That's a very bold brand that you now work for, all right? I know the U.S. flag, I know the German flag, and I also know like the Red Cross flag. I've seen it my whole life. It's like give blood, do good things, help other people, be there for the others that are in need, or have you done any good in the world today? That's what I think of when I see that Red Cross.
Yeah, and I think the Red Cross is a symbol is very important, as well as the other symbols like the Red Crescent. And
exactly.
Yes. that you're able to see around the world that represent a humanitarian movement that includes everything from what people are most familiar with, probably in the United States would be the American Red Cross, where you find in your local communities volunteers and people to support a lot of the efforts that you mentioned, all the way up to those who are engaged in armed conflict. The International Committee, the Red Cross, which is Geneva-based. So I'm representing the Geneva-based part of that movement in the International Committee of the Red Cross. And what I find particularly compelling and interesting about the organization, especially coming from special operations, where there's this mindset that you have in doing your mission of the importance of access and placement and being networked around the world. And with a very different mission, with a humanitarian focus, you see that same mindset that's very powerful within the Red Cross movement, which includes everything from the national societies, like I mentioned, with the American Red Cross up to the Geneva-based International Committee of the Red Cross. And that division of labor where we're focused on armed conflict and they're focused a lot on humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, local community support is very powerful. So just to give you a notion, there's about 17,000 of us in the ICRC around the world, distributed globally. And you can just imagine looking at a map of armed conflict data around the world where we are present. And then you have an additional 425,000 people within the broader movement that are working for the Red Cross movement. And then what surprised me is 17 million volunteers around the world. So just like you see, imagine the American Red Cross, where you can go to any small town or community in the United States and find American Red Cross members. Imagine that same concept applied to any country around the world. So that's one of the things that gives us as a movement a head start if any armed conflict emerges, because you have this backbone of people that know the language, they know all the local community, they know the people, they know the civilians there, they know the infrastructure, logistics, they live there. So it's incredibly powerful for us in supporting the humanitarian mission that we're able to pull that together from local nationals all the way up to the international colleagues that are working for the ICRC.
I love it. I just want to let you talk, okay? Because like, more of that needs to be going on in the world today of, again, helping and supporting one another and just realizing that we're all of the same human makeup, It's like we're fighting over just resources, and then that causes the conflicts, and then now you have people who are displaced and not wanting to be involved in the conflicts and looking for salvation, and whether that's under the Red Crescent or under the Red Cross, right, which is there to show that it's not just like a Christianity-based entity. It's also, here's the Red Crescent for anybody that believes in, Islam or anything, I believe. Is that what I'm understanding, what the Red Crescent is to show? Is like both sides, like, hey, we're not just one thing. Is that why there is the Red Crescent versus the cross?
Yeah, so you have in the movement, there was misunderstanding, exactly as you described, yes, that the cross is not a religious symbol,
right?
In its use for the ICRC emblem. It's actually the reverse of the Swiss flag. You know,
course.
it's one of those. If you look at the geometry of it, it's not a religious geometry as the cross is used in Christianity. So it was making sure within the movement that those who had those concerns, that there would be alternate symbols that were available to them, to include a gem type figure that's also available for others to use should they choose to. But the most commonly seen around the world would be the Red Cross as well as the Red Crescent, which are the most recognizable, that most people would see and know exactly what they're looking at and what it
Correct.
represents.
I love that. And I know that like medic kits on people's their belts and stuff have that Red Cross on, like right here. Yeah. It's like, oh, go get his medic kit off his belt. It's the Red Cross one right there, right? It's like medic, the symbol of medic has been used so much. And so why do, well, I guess I know why. I guess I was gonna say, why is it that you guys are attacked when you're trying to do humanitarian missions, you know, while you have this? And you obviously, everybody kind of knows. I know that some countries don't have, you know, infrastructure like internet or cell phones, or their whole community doesn't, but when they see those symbols, they seem to know what it means. Why are you guys attacked when you're just trying to provide, you know, this humanitarian relief to just disservice?
So you bring up a really important point, and for me it's powerful, and it was a huge adjustment coming into the ICRC. That emblem is the protection.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, what I was used to being all kitted out with weapons together with your team, with armed overwatch, you know, everything that we would lay on in the special operations community for a military operation to protect our own while conducting military missions. For the ICRC, when conducting humanitarian missions, you don't have weapons. You're not wearing body armor. You're not in up-armored vehicles. You're not having armed escorts or overwatch.
Right.
It's literally the emblem that protects you. And it's such a powerful thing. And it's part of the conventions that all the nations have agreed to protect humanitarians and to protect that emblem and to respect that protection. So sometimes, quite frankly, when there are incidents, when we've unfortunately had ICRC or members of the movement, the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, who have been killed or have been injured, where that protection was not sufficiently respected. And it could come from everything from the fog of war, where you have mistakes that are made. Maybe you have a lack of fires discipline, you have a lack of professionalism that could result in you know, the emblem not being sufficiently guarded, protected, and respected. And then unfortunately, you could have circumstances where, or maybe someone is maliciously trying to go after, you know, the Red Crescent or the Red Cross or other humanitarians. So it's one of those things that we try and reinforce the body of agreements internationally in our frequent engagements around the world with nations, as well as non-state armed groups. So this isn't just something we're talking with militaries or talking with state governments. We're also talking with non-state armed groups and getting everyone to appreciate and understand the importance of their obligations to respect the protection that this emblem provides, as well as the need to protect humanitarians and to protect civilians. And then also to make sure that measures are taken so that you avoid miscalculations, mistakes, unintended harm to humanitarians that you didn't mean, but because of maybe something in your operational planning or the way that you're operating led to harm that had real consequences.
And so the thing about the International Committee for the Red Cross is that you guys aren't just, okay, so conflict's going on right now around the world. Everybody's talking about Israel and Gaza. Okay, there's a flotilla right now that's trying to get into the, you know, they're trying to Dunkirk their way in to get humanitarian efforts and relief into Gaza right now, like on the coast. And, you know, they're being harassed and, you know, they're just trying to do the same kind of thing. Is anything, is the Red Cross involved in any of that? Is there any flags on any of those boats that are going in with that flotilla that's currently kind of how are you guys trying to get supplies into Gaza? And then I have a follow-up question about other countries as well.
Yeah, so for us, anytime we have a humanitarian mission anywhere in the world, our access and placement is dependent on the acceptance of whoever the armed parties are that are controlling that territory. So that will be a critical part for us. You can take any context, any continent in the world, and what we will do is have multidisciplinary teams. We'll have specialists to include specialists like myself, who are armed forces advisors, to engage with those militaries, but then also to engage with the governments to make sure that the obligations of humanitarian access are respected, and to make sure that the mechanisms that are needed for us to get humanitarian supplies in to conduct our mission are facilitated. And that was something that we had been doing, with U.S. forces when they were present. We continue to engage with both the Israeli Defense Forces as well as the Israeli government to make sure that our humanitarian mission is able to continue. And we will run in our own dialogue, our own logistics and supply lines, while at the same time we'll have bilateral confidential dialogue. And this is an important part of our work. When we talk with states, we always do so bilaterally and confidentially. So we do not talk with other parties about what we are discussing. So we have that trust and confidence, and we're able to be open with each other, and they're able to be open with us to get our mission best supported. And that's hard sometimes for people to understand and accept, why we may not, as an institution, a humanitarian organization, be speaking more publicly. But sometimes it's not that we wouldn't want to. It's because of the way that we operate. In order to be able to do our mission, we need acceptance from the parties that we are working with. And that acceptance comes from a trust that results from this bilateral confidential relationship that we have, that garners respect on both sides for each other's missions and understanding what we're doing.
Wow, it seems like you should take a bigger role in the world, okay? Can I just chuckle at that? I don't want to laugh at such atrocities that happen that you guys get called into, but the Red Cross also shows up to hurricane relief and, for blood donations on the fly. It's like national disaster. Who do we go to? We go to the Red Cross. We're like, give blood, go to the local Red Cross, give blood. There's one here in Salt Lake City. There's a Red Cross I drive by almost every single day. And I just drive by. I'm so jaded to the Red Cross, this building, and the people in there working diligently to try to make the best of whatever they can from here in Salt Lake for the world as a whole. It's like you're able to talk to leaders on one side of a conflict and the leaders on the other side of a conflict and say, hey, you guys all know who we are. You all know the Red Crescent and the Red Cross and the other symbols that mean, what this is. So you're going to let us chill. We're good. You trust us. Can you just tell them to stop being mad at each other too at the same time? I know the Red Cross is not a political situation. It's a humanitarian, I believe, cause, right? Or designation just for humanity.
Right. So one of the things that's really important for us, and as you mentioned, we're not political, and we are a neutral organization, which again is, it doesn't mean that each of us serving as individuals are neutral in our hearts, but professionally, and in order to perform our humanitarian mission, the only way we can accomplish that mission is to be professionally neutral in order to not pick sides in a conflict. And, there's a couple of bodies of law that affect warfare. One is jus ad bello, which has to do with whether wars are justified or legal, the prosecution of a war, who starts the war. And the ICRC does not get into that side of the law. We don't come in judgmentally to say who's right or wrong in terms of the parties to the conflict. What we do is we understand that war is a very unfortunate reality of humanity on Earth. And if we accept that wars are going to happen, how can we come up with a way of operating so that we can try and minimize civilian harm? We can try and minimize unnecessary suffering, to include by those who are fighting, those uniformed personnel. And the way that we do that is to be apolitical. It's to be neutral, to not pick sides. So we talked in the beginning, you mentioned humanity. Humanity is a North Star principle for the ICRC, and that guides everything that we do. But one other important principle is
Me too. Me
neutrality.
too. I just want you to know. Me too.
Yeah, exactly. and, uh, and,
I just
and,
want you to
and
know that.
neutrality is again, if we weren't a neutral party, we would not have access. We would not be able to have the acceptance that we need to do our humanitarian mission with all of the different civilian communities that may be on that battlefield. The only way that opposing parties in an armed conflict are going to give the same organization access to territory under their control is by seeing us as a neutral actor that's not picking sides, that truly only has humanitarian interests. And then
100%.
in addition to that, we're an independent organization, so we make our own decisions on where we go and how we act, and nobody else is telling us or making those decisions for us. And then the last, and I think one of the most important principles that guides us is impartiality, and that means that we go wherever the needs are greatest. So as we look around the world, you can imagine we do not have unlimited resources. So we have to, unfortunately, choose with the resources that we have where is the greatest need, and that includes in any given conflict, and apply our resources carefully to those who have the greatest need.
It's an amazing mission that you are a part of, Colonel, sir, dude. And I just want you to know that. And I just want to ask a question that I usually ask everybody on my show is, you go from a young man to military, okay, in your life. You transition into the military, and you graduate, and you're a pilot, and you're flying C-130s, and you did that for like 20 some odd years in the military. And then, the transition out, okay? So a lot of my listeners are former veterans or currently in, or they're going around and they're getting their DD-214 all squared away, and they're like getting all this stuff signed off, and, they're running around to the base and sign this, so when I get out, it won't make any sense to anybody else but me. You had to do that as well, and you achieved the rank of colonel, all right? And that's admirable, 100%. And so to climb that rank, and then to all of a sudden have to transition your life again into a civilian life, because the Red Cross is a civilian effort. How was that transition for you to go from, learning how to fly the C-130 and dropping my dad over enemy territory as a Green Beret, those kind of guys, doing the mission, green light to go, the red light, green light, the red straps on the seat of the inside of a C-130, all of the, the door opening, the tailgate dropping down, all of that. It's like, as a young man growing up, I've been all over that thing. My dad would be like, hey, let's go to this C-130 and walk through it. And I'm like, oh, red straps, cargo netting. You go from that, and I'm sure you probably have a model of that somewhere in your office, a C-130 somewhere. There's probably a model, maybe hanging or sitting somewhere. You go from that to this. Can you kind of explain that transition for my listener who may be contemplating maybe joining your mission that is in your realms? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And before I answer that question, yes, I have a Talon 2 model. Most of us who served in Okinawa, we used to have a place in the Philippines that hand carved them for us, and they would tailor them, and that was fantastic. But yeah, I would tell you, coming to the ICRC, that part for me was not difficult. But the first part of your question, man alive, it's no joke, hardest thing in my life. That stepping out of uniform, and I'll just tell you very frankly, I had personally gotten to that point, and it's tough. It's some people, this notion of work-life balance, having your family in your life while still being able to do your professional job, especially when you're in uniform. But I wasn't very good at that. You get sucked into. I was very mission oriented, always had been. You get sucked into that, to the abandonment of those you love and care about most dearly, your most proximate family. So it was one of those is one of those tough choices that I had to make, as I thought about my wife and daughter. And it was one of those. My daughter was 13, so with Daisy and I, it was like, okay, I love what I'm doing, but I only have one life, and I don't get another swing at this.
No.
So I'm gonna make the hard call, and I probably didn't do it the best way. It was one of those. I didn't talk to anybody or tell anybody before I pushed the button because I didn't want anybody to talk me out of it.
Right.
It's
Because
like
they would have.
I I had made a decision that I need to do this for my family. I need to reconnect with them. I need to spend time with them, and that's exactly what we did. And full of tears. I mean, it's still it's hard for me. I loved it, and yeah. So Daisy and Isabel and I, we spent a, a few years together, just us traveling around, and it was fantastic. And we did a homeschool program, the Potter School that I put Isabel in, and I got to be her tutor and and support her in her studies for a couple years, and it was fantastic. And after 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 that, one of the challenges though is, and you'll talk with people who transition out of uniform, it's never enough just to be dedicated to your family. That focus and dedication to your family is important, but you need your own sense of purpose, and it seems like you found that in
Yeah.
what you're doing, and congratulations for finding that purpose.
Thank you.
For me, that's what I was seeking, and it was one of those, you kind of feel it, but my wife, especially Daisy, she was able to see it and recognize that, you just can't keep hanging out with us for for
It's like,
for years and years more. You need something for yourself. And I had always wanted to transition to the humanitarian side of the fence at some point. And what surprises me is you look at veterans, how many, it's a sense of service that you have, and very often you have it from when you're very young. Sometimes it comes from your family, sometimes it comes from your community. It definitely, if you didn't have it before you joined the military, you will have it,
oh
just
yeah.
because of your military service. So when many people who leave, uh, the uniformed ranks, they continue to serve in some way, serve their communities. It could be at the local, state level. It could be with law enforcement. It could be as a defense contractor. It could be as a government civilian in a federal agency. And I think, especially if we look back at the legacy of the GI Bill after World War II, and how we reintegrated uh, military veterans into society at all levels, and that redefined the fabric of America. And I think you still see versions of that today in the United States, and that's everywhere from, even as ICRC, when I'm engaging on the Hill with congressional representatives, together with my colleagues, to engage in the Pentagon, or like you were mentioning with the American Red Cross, as we talk to our movement partners here in the United States. It really, it's heartening to see how many people have a more selfless sense of that they want to be giving something with a sense of service, and in many cases very directly, a sense of public service to America, to us as a nation. And it's interesting because I look at armed forces advisors like myself. In the ICRC, we have 30 different nationalities, so that as we engage and we talk with different countries and different militaries and different
Right.
states, they have the same passion that I have for America, for the countries that they come from, with that North Star principle of humanity orienting them. So it becomes a very powerful thing. But for any of the veterans that may be listening, or people who are getting ready to transition, don't underestimate how hard it's going to be. I mean, it is incredibly difficult. Don't underestimate all the preparation that you need to do, not just for yourself, but with your family. And then take that time to reconnect with friends and family, because Anybody who's been in uniform will have been running hard. There would have been a lot of time away from home. But once you've reset, make sure that you're thinking hard about that sense of purpose, something that's going to give you fulfillment, you as an individual. Because if you don't do that, it's going to affect your relationships with others, to include your family.
Yeah, because they may be, used to you being at your job. And, like when my dad would deploy as a Green Beret, my mom was always home. We never really traveled around the country like a lot of Army brats did in other jobs. Like they're like, oh, hey, a year later you're going to a new base, or dad's moving to a new base, or mom in 2 years, or transitioning TDY. My dad I kind of was fortunate that dad would just go from his base and go for 3-6 months. And we would just stay here. So we got to grow roots here, here in Utah. And mom was also dad and mom. And okay, let's say a quick prayer to get the car started this morning so we get you to school on time. I'm like, do I have to pray for that? It's like, let's go. And then dad comes home from, deployment. And then he's like trying to rub shoulders with mom and trying to acclimate back into the life of the family unit that we want dad back at, but then all of a sudden it's like, hey, well, there's a regiment going on here, and mom's kind of got things under control, and now dad's got to fall back into the regiment of that. And dad sits there and thinks, well, maybe deployments are taking away from me, or taking away from that family time frame. And I never realized dad was gone. I mean, I did, but I just thought, oh, that's dad. That's what my dad does. And I would wear camouflage every day to school, and I had my own little ribbons that I earned around the house for good conduct and like all that kind of a thing. My dad's like, here's your airborne wings, because we would jump off picnic tables before they jumped. They'd get ready to jump and stuff before they got on the C-130s and whatnot. Yeah. So I would do all that as an 8, 9, 10-year-old little kid. Like you would have your kid palling around with you everywhere, right? Exposed to that environment. And so I guess I'm just relating with just like that kind of a situation of the family unit and the dynamic, and then him transitioning from Green Beret from a medical was to like believe in me as a business owner at 14. So he saw me slinging skateboards out of my garage, and he's like, well, let's get you a business license and get you a little shop and start pushing that together. All behind the scenes, he had a master's degree in business management and communications. So this whole time, dad being a Green Beret warfighter, he was also a very savvy business guy. And I think that's kind of where I get that from. Like, I can totally see where he like kind of put me into this realm of where I'm at today, and including this show. Because I got into public speaking and communications because of my dad, after I learned that he was all, into business as well. So it's like, thanks, Dad. And so thanks to you.
Cool.
I'm just saying, I'm just sharing that with you, okay? I just want to let you know, So, and I guess it's just a hard transition, because I try to watch him transition from SF to running marathons every day to what's he going to do now? What do you do? You're like kind of frozen. And so you guys at the International Red Cross, you're always looking for able people that can help join your programs and your cause, even if it's not on an international level, it's on a local level. They can just reach out through the Red Cross's probably website, right? And apply for careers.
Most definitely. And, both the American Red Cross as well as the ICRC, you can go via the websites to see what kind of openings. And for anybody who's interested in those career opportunities, what's good is if you do that before you're ready to transition, so you can start looking, what are the qualifications? What are the attributes that they're looking at? So if you see a gap in your resume or something that you might be able to do to try and make yourself more competitive, then you do that. I wanted to, when you were talking about deployments and when your father would go away and then come back, it made me think of one other really important mission that the ICRC has when it comes to armed conflict, and whether it's with U.S. military, and this is when I'm speaking with U.S. government officials, whether it's on the Hill or Pentagon officials, something I emphasize is our obligation to U.S. service members and their families in the event that a big war were to kick off, or in any of the current conflicts that the U.S. may be involved in around the world. And it is those situations where somebody deploys, or you can take other nations' militaries, how often you might have somebody taken as a prisoner of war,
Right.
or somebody who may be missing in action, and you have a family that doesn't know, were they killed, were they taken prisoner? So one of the important roles that ICRC has in armed conflict is being able to help to make those links, to restore those links with families by being able to visit POWs, being able to get a Red Cross message out, and communicate that with the families so that they know that their family member's still alive. If in the most unfortunate of circumstances someone has fallen, to be able to make sure that those remains are able to be returned in a dignified manner, and that the family knows. And we had a very, on POWMIA Day, we went as a delegation with our head of delegation, Fabrizio Carboni, with very, I think as an American, one of the most powerful things you can see to reflect on the nation is to go to Arlington Cemetery and see the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And it's that concept of, thinking back to those many Americans in World War I or World War II during the Great Wars, or then even in the Korean War, where they might have had a family member that deployed in these conflicts that never came back, and they don't know what happened. And, the effort that the U.S. military, through POWMIA efforts, or the ICRC makes in countries where conflicts occurred, to try and provide some resolution, even if it takes some time. What I find amazing is, we've got everything to include forensic specialists, and that are able to help engage, bring their expertise, not only with countries around the world, but also with the United States. And again, hopefully a lot of these efforts will never be needed. But if there were big conflict to emerge on the scales that we saw in the great wars of World War I and World War II, our history and those Americans and the voices, the writings, the recordings of what they have to tell us are important for us to remember. And the ICRC is very attuned to that. And I think it's an important part of our work from a preparedness perspective.
I'm also in tune to that. I like that. That's a good, I like what you said right there. I just want to let that be known, okay, for the record. That was awesome. Well put. And I was just thinking, geez, I'm sitting here telling my daughter there's these positions available. She speaks multiple languages. And I'm like, wow, well, I should just, okay, watch for a resume coming through here shortly,
right.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, yo, Sydney,
Yeah.
You'll never believe another job opportunity, because it gives you a sense of purpose.
It does. Yeah, that's one thing. And that's why when I mentioned transitioning out of the military was hard, transitioning into the ICRC was not.
Yes.
And it's because of that. As long as you have that sense of purpose, that, when you have a good mission, and it was the same thing when I was in uniform, as long as you have a good mission, then there's nothing to worry about. Even if life's hard, if it's difficult, if there's challenges, as long as your mission's good and you can stand behind it and you're proud of that mission, then you're in a good place.
Yeah, you like to probably be shoulder to shoulder with those that are going to be shoulder to shoulder with you. You know what I mean? And,
exactly.
And so whether that's on a C-130 and you got your battle buddies on there and crew chief, everybody shoulder to shoulder, kind of ranks out the window at that point, It's like, hey, Tom, hey, Bill, hey, Dan. Okay, but sir, on the flight line, I got you. Like that shoulder to shoulder camaraderie is something that I found myself was awesome in the military, on a baseball team, in Boy Scouts. You have a lot of the same people doing the same type of shoulder to shoulder activities. And I'm sure with the ICRC, it's the same exact thing. There's camaraderie. You have people who, a brotherhood and a sisterhood, who have, sworn to help, the humanitarian North Star effort. Sometimes we drift towards the second star to the right, though, Peter Pan. Okay, but we got to always stay focused on that North Star, right? But, there might be a vacation to the left star there, but nonetheless, I think what you guys are doing as a whole, right, is honorable. So,
no, thank you. And, for me, it's, as I reflect, one of the things that makes special operations teams so versatile is you have all of these different subject matter experts that are part of your team. And that's very much how the ICRC operates. So it's one of those concepts that's very familiar where, whether it's an armed forces advisor or it's an engineer who's able to work essential water systems, wastewater and drinking water, or it's medical professionals, doctors and nurses, or it's the protection personnel that are able to go do prison visits and check on, how the prisons are being run, or it's somebody who's able to be on the hotlines that are restoring family links,
Right.
listening to the stories from the families. It's really incredible when you see the diversity of teams and the way that they're tailored by ICRC leadership and heads of delegations in the field.
I would say that, like, in basic, I remember a gentleman getting Red Crossed out in basic training. We were like, where'd he go? Oh, he got Red Crossed. We were like, what is that? Do we get Red Cross? What? Like, something serious happened in his life that the Red Cross reached out through the basic training and pulled him out to go take care of whatever he had to take care of. That's all I ever knew. We just heard he was Red Crossed. So, I mean, you guys literally reach everybody that is needing to be, that you try to help everybody in need, like you said, whether they're a POW, whether it's a airman that's being Red Crossed out for family medical or family emergencies, and the Red Cross can get involved in that. That's the neutralness. We'll go with neutralness. Okay, that's the that you present to all sides of the situation of the conflict. And I think what you would like is just when you come into the situation and you're talking to side A, who thinks they're the good guys, you're like, hey, cool, you think you're the good guys, but we're the Red Cross. We just want to make sure that we can get in through these lanes, okay, from your side, that's the good guys, quote unquote. Now someone has to go talk to team B, who thinks that they're the good guys. And and you're still the Red Cross or the Red Crescent, and you're like, hey, look, okay, so you think you're the good guys, that's cool. I can't tell you what they think, but I can tell you that we just need to go down this road without you guys shooting at us from this side. Okay, and really that's where the Red Cross comes in. It's like, hey, let us just take these supplies in. This is the situation, and just leave us alone. And sometimes that doesn't always happen. We've seen it time and time again, targeted attacks of these vehicles that have the cross or the Red Crescent or a similar nature, right? Trying to bring supplies. And it's not just in Gaza, it's like Africa and in other countries that a lot of people aren't even on their radar. Like, you guys are getting phone calls of almost a 911, hi, this is African country, needs you now. You're like, okay, here's what's going on over here. Here's a genocide happening over here. Here's a earthquake of enormous proportions over here in Haiti, et cetera. It's like, that's where you guys come in, and that's where you flex like Arnold right there.
Yeah, and I think, what's important, and I think it's interesting, the evolution of a lot of our work, and if we go back to the origin story of the ICRC, in 1859, when we look at the Battle of Solferino, where Henri Dunant, a businessman, is going to try and meet Napoleon. He has no idea what's going on, and a battle breaks out where 29,000 people are killed in 12 hours of fighting. And, you don't have any of what we're talking about.
No.
It doesn't exist. And it's that need in this case where you have somebody who's seeing the after effects, is seeing the wounded and seeing the dead with no one to attend to them, no one to carry them off. And he writes about it, and he's able to share that story in a small pamphlet. He writes Memories of Solferino, and he's able to share that with other European partners and get everyone to agree that this is not okay. That these individuals who are fighting on behalf of their state in uniform, once they're wounded, once they're sick, they're out of the fight, and they need to be respected as individuals now, and they need to be protected. And someone needs to attend to them. And I can remember he writes about a sergeant major who'd been fighting for over 30 years, very experienced, who's on a church floor, who's about to die from gangrene 5 days after his injuries. And he knows that he's going to die, and he's asking Henri Dunant, can you please let my family know? And he writes a letter so that Henri Dunant is able to get that letter to the family to know where he died and that he died honorably. But the greatest tragedy was that Sergeant Major, he knew that had his wounds been attended to right away, he would have survived.
Yeah.
He might have suffered an amputation, but he would have survived. And, so this movement to, amongst these powers, to come up with a way to protect those in uniform when they're wounded, and to honor the dignity of those who are fallen was really important. And you see these gaps come up, and even today, where I think everybody, independent of whether there's treaties or legal obligations or not, and any human should be able to appreciate intuitively that moral sense of obligation to respect the humanity of everyone. And we see that as we go into World War I, prisoners of war became a big issue, and
Yes.
the mistreatment of prisoners of war. So then they became another group of uniformed personnel that needed to be protected. And in World War II, then you have, a lot of civilians that are harmed unnecessarily in World War II. So then you get the protection of civilians, and you bring that body of law, whether on land or at sea. If you're sick, if you're wounded, if you are a civilian, that you deserve to be protected.
Yeah, and I would imagine that if there was someone wounded on the battlefield, you're not really taking sides of who that wounded is. You're just like, hey,
Exactly, and that's where impartiality comes up.
Yeah.
It's needs-based, whoever needs the support.
That's correct, because there's veterans on both sides of Team A and Team B who are being shell-shocked, wounded with PTSD, wounded physically, traumatic brain injuries on both sides, all fighting in the name of their cause.
Yeah.
Right? And like I said, Team A thinks they're the good guy, Team B thinks they're the good guy. And they're fighting each other. They just need to someone needs to just talk the same language to one another, and which is what I find. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think that presidents should speak a different language, at least one, fluently. It should be okay, I speak Mandarin or I speak Spanish. Okay, well, we have two candidates. One speaks Mandarin, one speaks Spanish. That's a good thing. They could talk. I think that if we could have people learn, or have, like you said, you have multiple nationalities from all around the world blended into your organization who can do just that and have those conversations with that passion. Whereas over here, it's oh, you're talking bad about me, but they're really trying to say, hey, can I get a cup of water? Right? This communication is the breakdown, I think.
Yeah.
That's just me. I'm just saying that. But I know that you guys are very, is it apolitical? Is that the right word? You're not political.
Yeah, we're a
right?
neutral apolitical organization, and
that's right.
It's one of those. You try to understand where people are coming from, right? So, and one of the challenges is, war is about using. You've gotten to the point as a state or as an organization, if it's a non-state armed group, where you've decided that you're going to use violence to try and achieve some political objectives. And it's one of those, trying to get everybody to acknowledge that even wars have rules, right? And how you decide to fight those wars, how you lead those wars, is going to determine how the wars end. So trying to get everybody to imagine beyond the rage that they may feel internally, and have the professionalism to be able to conduct themselves in a way that's able to think about the post-conflict environment and set the stage so that you minimize the grievances, so that there's the greatest chance of reconciliation. I mean, you think about a lot of the foundations of law of armed conflict as the U.S. military understands it today is, founded all the way back from Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War, and what he asked to be generated the Lieber Code for Union forces. A lot of these same concepts that are born of this era are the same ideas that we continue to teach to our armed forces, and in the United States, the laws of armed conflict that all uniformed personnel receive.
Yeah, and so hopefully everybody, the Geneva Convention does exist, and so where in the Geneva Convention does the International Red Cross fall? Is that a part of Geneva Conventions? Are you guys like, hey, Geneva recognizes the crescent and the cross as
Yes,
non-combatant?
yeah, and the Geneva Conventions are also they provide the mandate for the International Committee of the Red Cross. So when there's an armed conflict, this is what the Geneva Conventions that all states have agreed to. So it means that when there's an armed conflict, everyone has this common agreement and understanding of what the legal obligations are under the laws of armed conflict. And that includes a mandate to allow the ICRC to do our humanitarian work. So there's that aspect. But then also the ICRC is, the nickname would be the Guardians of IHL. So one of the most impressive groups of specialists that we have in the ICRC is international humanitarian law specialists.
Yes.
So they focus on international humanitarian law, all the treaties, the Geneva Conventions, as we watch and observe how wars are being conducted, as we think about future warfare as well, and contemplate new technologies, how adequate do states recognize and do we as ICRC recognize the current body of law, and how much might there need to be discussions about additional conversations to keep everyone safe and respect humanity in future warfare?
Yeah, 100%. I don't even know if we should even keep this conversation going any longer. Just end it right there, okay? Because that's exactly the point that I love to hear that, and that's like, what's his wife's name? Amal Clooney. She, George Clooney's wife. Mm-hmm. She is a huge, humanitarian lawyer, I think. And she, that's what you're talking about, is these lawyers that just focus straight on humanitarian law to help, just how do you have somebody who, like herself, such a educated individual, so smart and powerful, so right about a lot of things, try to explain to somebody who's just stuck on bloodlust, I don't know what I'm trying to get, there's somebody who's just dead set on war.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that how you frame the conversation, who you talk with, who you engage, when you choose to engage, obviously is very carefully considered, and we as the ICRC work very hard when we engage with different parties to an armed conflict to get them to accept the meeting. If we ask for the meeting, to accept it. And one of the reasons that someone should feel confident in accepting the meeting is what we started with in the beginning, that bilateral confidential dialogue. You can trust that if you're going to talk with me or you're going to talk with my colleagues, that we're not going to go yapping to some other party. We're not going to be judgmental and publish some public report on social media. We're going to have a conversation with you based on our humanitarian interests and hope that we're able to get the other side to appreciate why it's also in their national interests or in their interests. And there is very often overlap. You just have to be able to articulate it in a way that's convincing, that's able to get the other side to appreciate it. Often in the heat of conflict and war, there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of rage. So how do you get through that? Again, not to imagine just the current fight, but to try and imagine a future where the conflict ends. And what does that post-conflict environment look like? And that's what we're trying to shape. And it doesn't the legal foundations are important, but it's one of those. I found it interesting, if you allow me real quick to
Please.
read. It was in 1955 is when the United States ratified the Geneva Conventions, and we waited until after the Korean War because we didn't want the Korean War to affect the dialogue. But I found it interesting. Here you have warriors from World War I, World War II that are serving in the Senate that are arguing why this is so important. And they argue our nation has everything to gain and nothing to lose by being a party to the conventions now before the Senate, and by encouraging their most widespread adoption. The requirements of the four conventions to a very great degree reflect the actual policies of the United States in World War II. The practices which they bind nations to follow impose no burden upon us that we would not voluntarily assume in a future conflict without the injunctions of formal treaty obligations. And I bring that up because it's, what you hear this veteran saying and ratifying the conventions is there's something in the American spirit about this, that even if this body of law didn't exist, we will conduct ourselves honorably in warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things I think it's important for us to remember today, especially as I hear sometimes that, the Geneva Conventions, maybe that works for counterinsurgency or counterterrorism, but it's going to be really difficult if there's a large-scale conflict. Well, here's the men that came out of the horrors of one of the greatest wars on earth, and they're telling us
Exactly.
that this is how they conducted themselves, and that they agree that these conventions are important. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that as we talk about any potential future wars that the United States may be engaged in, that framing with an American spirit.
I love that, and I think that we should, move our best foot forward as the stewards of what we have around us, as as a father, as a business owner, as people around me. I can just be whatever best conduit of that I can be, and then hopefully that will rub off on those around me, which will then domino effect their circle of influence and then their circle of influence to try to keep it honorable. And conflict has been around since the dawn of time. Man has fought with sticks and stones, okay, let alone air power.
That's right.
Right? So you can only imagine 29,000 lost lives were not from air power. When you're referencing take this note, or the founding of the Napoleon, of the
From
Red Cross.
Solferino, right?
Yeah, right. That's 29,000 lives of bayonets and one shots.
Yeah, utter brutality.
Fist fights. There was no tanks. So 12 hours and 29,000 people. Like, we're so jaded to, to conflicts happening. That's like, another 4 dead in Kiev, another 12 dead in Africa, another 37 dead at a local Texas school. Okay, so it's like, we need to stop. Dude, it's just a total hippie song. Okay, it's like, Look around. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down, and just be aware. I think, and just know that, I don't know, we just all bleed red blood.
We should never be callous
That's
to
it.
the loss of human life. It's one of those things. And when we're talking armed conflict, we know the horrors of war are very real. And as you described, it's an unfortunate part of humanity that we will probably continue to fight wars for the indefinite future. So if that is our
the
reality,
Lord of the Flies. It's the Lord of the Flies. Who holds the conch shell? It's like
so in whether it's in warfare or other contexts you described there, some suffering will happen, but how can we identify as ways to avoid and mitigate unnecessary suffering?
Yes.
And that is the focus of the ICRC. We have folks like myself as armed forces advisors who've had to make the difficult decisions in armed conflict. And the way it is in the Geneva Conventions, it balances military necessity and appreciation that the military has a mission. So you balance military necessity with those humanitarian concerns and interests.
Right.
So how can we, both for the uniformed personnel as well as for the civilians, mitigate and eliminate unnecessary suffering? Because it's pointless. It achieves no end.
No. It just makes everybody mad. Nowadays, it's just right in our face. We get dosed with the reality of it from our supercomputer in our hand. Everybody's just dosed with, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. And it's like, how do we, I don't know. I think everybody's is jaded. I'm scratching my beard with my David Letterman pencil right here that I hold.
So while you have that feeling of being jaded, and as do many, or that feeling that we become desensitized to that, That's where I
That's
think
the word.
you can feel confident that the ICRC and the ICRC around the world does not get desensitized ever. Like, the mission is humanity, and the mission is to think about exactly that which other people don't want to think about, and focus all of our energy on that to try and reduce human suffering in warfare.
Thank you for that. I appreciate you. I want you to know that. I know I've captured an hour of your time today, and I know that you're very busy, and there's so much more that I could talk with you, and you're always welcome back to be on the show to bring the message and the mission of the International Red Cross to my platform. Whatever I can do with it, whatever conduit I have here at SOFREP, radio, SOFREP Radio, merch store. But look, whatever I have, whatever I can help with, please use me, this opportunity, if it's available, if you have something you want to say, if your great liaison, Dominique, wants to, reach out to me and say, hey, Rad, can we get so-and-so on? Yes. Anybody that comes from your lane is a welcome guest on my show. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you. And
Thank you, Rad.
And I love
Yes.
your mantle of honor there. It's a good one. And like I said before, I'm jealous. I love the Rocky Mountains ever since I went to the academy in Colorado.
Oh, yeah, you did.
There's something. I love the outdoors, and yeah. I need to come out to Utah sometime.
I got my snowboards right here. So they're just waiting in that fireplace. It is October. It is. Yeah. We are feeling the fall colors change here in Utah. Home to Snowbird Ski Resort, Brighton Ski Resort, Brighton Snowboard Resort. What's up? I should say that.
Yeah.
Okay, because Powder Mountain, little Nordic Valley up in the north. We have a big belief here at SOFREP, and it's thrills before pills. So before you go to the VA, when you go to the VA, if you go to the VA, you're talking to your doctor or to your VA representative, ask them about, is there recreational therapy first for me to get involved with? If I'm going to go outside, can I get a swimming pool pass to get in the water? Can I go get a custom snowboard made for my one leg? Ask your Veterans Administration professional for recreational therapy. Okay, just ask for it. Say, where's recreational therapy? I know those are I know that's Motrin. Where's my recreational therapy?
Give me the good stuff. Give me the snowboard.
Give me the good Yes, exactly. Okay, so I just want to encourage that, thank you so much for being on the show. And again, you're supported by your family. You're supported by us here at SOFREP on your mission. I respect the Red Cross, the Red Crescent, and any other emblem that's going to fall underneath your guys' lane. I will respect that. I just want you to know.
Thank you, Rad, and fun conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you. And to my guests that just joined us, or to the first-time listener, I hope you've had a great time and you'll be coming back. And to those of you that have listened to the show and that you constantly listen to us, you know who you are. You guys send me emails. General, this is right out to you. Thank you so much for always, critiquing my shows. I appreciate that. And again, to Brandon Webb, who runs SOFREP, and the team behind him, allowing me to have this opportunity to become a better person by talking to people like Thom Geiser. Okay, I grew today from this conversation, and I hope that you did too when you listened to our show. So thank you so much for being a part of it, Thom. And Dominique, thank you for making this happen. And again, sorry about being late, sir. It won't happen again. I'll always be on time, and that was my fault. I'm not going to blame you, Dominique. I'll take full responsibility. And go check out the merch store. Go check out the book club, sofrep.com/book-club. And my name is Rad, saying peace.
Thank you, Rad, and to all your listeners.
You've been listening to SOFREP Radio.